Hey traders, it's John Fortune here with this week's weekly Forex forecast for the 17th of September to the 21st September 2018. As always, we're going to be starting with the US dollar index and oil before running through a number of markets, looking at the key levels of support and resistance in the process. I'm also going to be highlighting some of the targets that we're going to be looking for in the coming week and also in the weeks ahead. So I hope you're all having a fantastic weekend. Let's jump over to the charts and see where the money is this week. As always, starting with the US dollar index. Now, last week we had this breakdown below the 95.29. We had this pullback, retest, it's broken support, turning resistance, starting to make our way down towards the next key area of support to the downside, which is the target set as well for this week at the 94.31. Now, in terms of the dollar index, we go into this week with a neutral, slightly bearish to neutral bias on the US dollar index, but we can class this as a neutral bias because if you go back and look at the history between the 95.29 and the 94.31, we've been bouncing around and ranging between these levels. So there is a greater risk of ranging. So what we're going to be looking for this week, if we can get a pullback and a retest of broken support, turning resistance as it did over here, this is going to be a great place to start to look for bearish formations and patterns. And we're going to be looking at initiating shorts down towards the next key area of support to the downside in the target set at the 94.31. And if we can get a breakthrough here, we're going to be looking down towards the next key area of support to the downside in target 2 at the 93.85. Now, although we're looking for this potential price action next week, the reason we are neutral on the dollar and not bearish is because there is the risk that we finish taking out this from last week. This was the next key area of support, and then we bounce back up like this and we just start to range. So what this means is, although there is not a clear direction on the dollar this week, that helps us because it means we are looking to trade the currency pairs on their own merit without a strong bias in the dollar one way or the other. Next, we have crude oil. Now, last week we had this big push to the upside, breaking above the 68.34. So very simply put, as we start the week above the 68.34, this, and you can see we've already had this pullback and a retest of broken resistance, turning support at the 68.34. So going into next week, this is a great place to start to look for bullish formations and patterns. And we're going to be looking at initiating longs in oil up towards the next key area of resistance to the upside in the target set, the 72.15, and if we can get a breakthrough here, we're going to be looking up towards the next key area of resistance to the upside in target 2 at the 75.20. So the first pair we're going to look at is euro dollar. Now we start the week above the key area of broken resistance, looking to turn support at the 1.15903. If we can get a pullback, and preferably if we can get a pullback and a retest of broken resistance, turning support, this is going to be a great place to start to look for bullish formations and patterns. And we're going to be looking at initiating longs in the euro dollar up towards the next key area of resistance to the upside in the target set, the 1.17497. And if we can get a breakthrough here, although these are actually quite close together, we're going to be looking up towards the next key area of resistance to the upside in target 2 at the 1.17906. So next pair we have is pound dollar. As we start the week above broken resistance, looking to turn support at the 1.3020. If we can get a pullback, and preferably if we can get a retest of broken resistance turning support, this is going to be a great place to start once again to look for bullish formations and patterns. And we're going to be looking at initiating longs up towards the 1.3205, which is the next key area of resistance to the upside in the target set. And if we get a breakthrough here, we're going to be looking up towards the next key area of resistance to the upside after that and target 2 at 1.3294. Next, we have US dollar Japanese yen. Now, last week we actually ended up having the US dollar decline, as we looked at earlier when we looked at the dollar index, down towards that next key area of support to the downside. And yet, even though we had a weakening of the dollar, we had the US dollar moving to the upside against the yen. In fact, took out the target and the key area of resistance we had last week. Now, this is what we mean when we talk about trading the individual pairs on their own merit. When we have a very, very strong dollar, we're looking generally for the dollar to appreciate against all the other currencies. If we have a very, very weak dollar, we're looking generally for the dollar to depreciate against all the other currencies. But if we have a neutral dollar, the currencies can actually move both up and down against the dollar because it's not as strong. So for example, last week we had a weak dollar, but we had an even weaker yen. So when you get the dollar kind of neutral like that, we have to trade these pairs on their own merit. So very simply put, as we start the week above the key area of broken resistance turning support at the 111.723, this is going to be a place we can start to look for bullish formations and patterns. And if we get a pullback and a retest, we're going to be looking at initiating longs up towards the next key area of resistance to the upside and the target set at the 113.086. And if we can get a breakthrough here, we're going to be looking up towards the next key area of resistance to the upside and target 2 at the 113.724. So next pair we're going to look at is Aussie dollar. Now last week we did get this pullback and a retest of broken support turning resistance at 0.71767, and we pushed through it and then we came back and reversed down below, and we start the week below the key area of broken support turning resistance at 0.71767. So very simply put, if we get a pullback, and it would be good to see a little bit more of a push to the downside like this, and if we get a pullback and a retest of broken support, so if we really see this fail, pullback, broken support, turning resistance, this is going to be a great place to start to look for bearish formations and patterns. And we're going to be looking at initiating shorts down towards the next key area of support to the downside and the target set at a 0.70467. And if we can get a breakthrough here, we're going to be looking down towards the next key area of supports to the downside and target 2 at the 0.69500. So next pair we're going to look at is New Zealand dollar. Now we start the week below the key area of broken support, turning resistance once, looking to turn resistance once again at the 0.66085. If we can get a pullback, and preferably if we can get a pullback and a retest of broken support, turning resistance once again, this is going to be a great place to start to look for bearish formations and patterns. And we're going to be looking at initiating shorts down towards the next key area of support to the downside and the target set at the 0.64568. And if we can get a breakthrough here, we're going to be looking down towards the next key area of support to the downside and target 2 at the 0.63529. So next pair we're going to look at is US dollar Swiss franc. Now for the last couple of weeks we've been kind of hanging around between the 0.98073 and the key area of support at the 0.95838. You can see we've just kind of been moving almost sideways here in this sort of a range in the US dollar Swiss franc. But very simply put, as we start the week below the key area of broken support, looking to turn resistance at 0.9807, if we can get a pullback and a retest of broken support turning resistance, this is going to be a great place to start to look for bearish formations and patterns. And we're going to be looking at initiating shorts down towards the next key area of support to the downside and the target set at 0.95838. And if we can get a breakthrough here, we're going to be looking down towards the next key area of support to the downside and target 2 at the 0.94897. And the next pair we're going to look at is the US dollar CAD. Now, we start the week down below the key area of broken support, looking to turn resistance at the 1.30897. If we can get a pullback, and preferably if we can get a retest, this is going to be a great place to start to look for bearish formations and patterns. And we're going to be looking at initiating shorts down towards the next key area of support to the downside and the target set at the 1.29606. And if we can get a breakthrough here, we're going to be looking down towards the next key area of support to the downside and target 2 at the 1.28851. And last but not least, we have gold. Now, gold has pretty much sat underneath the 120557 for the last 4 weeks. And this is why I always advocate to my traders that you should be looking at trading a wide range of markets, not just one. If you come in and you say, well, I only trade gold, this is your opportunity for the last month. Okay, very, very difficult to make money in these conditions. So when the markets are like this in gold, we have to look elsewhere for the markets that are moving. But as we start the week below the key area of the 12505.57, once again, this is going to be a great place if we can come back, and we had a test of this once again last week. If we can get a pullback, and preferably if we can get a pullback and another retest for those already not involved in any gold positions, this is once again going to be a place we can start to look for bearish formations and patterns. And we're going to be looking at initiating shorts down towards the next key of support to the downside and the target set at the 1160.50. And if we can get a breakthrough here, we're going to be looking down towards the next key of support to the downside and target 2 at the 1142.40. Now, one thing we know about ranges is that they don't last forever. And in fact, the longer they go on, the longer they contract, and in many cases coil like a spring, the more explosive the move when it comes. So we'll be keeping an eye on gold and seeing how this develops next week. looking for these bearish opportunities down below the 1205.57. So that is it from me for this week, guys. As always, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please let me know by liking, sharing and subscribing. A big thank you to all of you who do that on a regular basis, and a big thank you to all of you who have subscribed to the channel so far. I want to wish you all a fantastic weekend. I hope you enjoy the rest of the weekend, and I hope you all have a fantastic and profitable week next week. The only thing left to say, guys, is take care and don't forget to trade safely.